Is it possible to buy too nice of a rental property? It is. And do you know how I know this? Because I did it. So, it was a big lesson learned. It was the nicest property I bought at the time, and I was like, oh, definitely got this one in the bag. This is going to be the big performer. No, it hasn't been the biggest performer. But let's not talk about me. First, if you were even aware that you could buy too nice of a rental property, hit that like button. If you had no idea that you could buy too nice of a rental property, hit that like button. See what I did there? Okay, let's talk about this. How would it be possible to buy too nice of a property for a successful rental property? Well, there are two things about really nice properties that could impact your rental property investment. So, what are they? First and foremost, right out of the gate, you can confirm this one way or the other very quickly when you're analyzing potential properties to become a rental property, the numbers. If you buy a property that is so nice, or whatever level of nice, depending on where you live, that makes it expensive, you may not be able to get enough in rent to cover your expenses. Depending, think about Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, the rents aren't anywhere near what your mortgage payment by itself on an expensive property is going to be. So you could potentially be in the hole every single month if you buy too nice of a property. And LA, San Fran, New York, it may not even have to be that nice, but it's just expensive. Or if you're in the Midwest or the South or somewhere that housing is more affordable, if you buy the absolute nicest property in the most popular area, you're going to pay a price tag for that. And that price tag may cause the numbers on this property to not work out. Even if you're investing for appreciation versus cash flow, because cash flow is what's immediately going to be impacted every month, whether you're pocketing money or not, depending on the expenses versus the income. Even if you're banking on appreciation, that's a different strategy. You need to make sure that you are going to be able to profit somehow down the line. But either way, the numbers oftentimes just don't work out on the nicest properties. That's why if you've been looking into rental property investing, or maybe you're a rental property investor already, you know not to look for properties in the nicest areas or the nicest properties. The numbers just don't pencil out. If by the numbers you have no idea what I'm talking about or how to run these numbers, how do you know if the numbers work out? I'm going to link to a video below where I literally, it's my hand on a whiteboard and I write out how to run rental property numbers. Super easy, super straightforward. Check that out below. Now, back to this too nice of a rental property kind of thing. Okay, numbers we get. But let's say there's a whole pile of properties where the numbers do work out. Is there a possibility that in that case, you still buy too nice of a rental property? I bet you can figure out, since I'm asking this question, the answer is yes. It's absolutely possible to buy too nice of a property that should pencil out on paper. How? It's a word that you absolutely need in your vocabulary, and chances are you haven't heard it yet because nobody's talking about it. Rentability. How rentable is the property that you're buying? Let's say on paper the numbers all work out, it seems like it should all be great, but are people going to want to rent the property? I'm going to link to another video below, literally diving into rentability. It's the whole conversation on the video, and you want a fun fact, I'm actually in the exact same outfit in that video because I just recorded it a few minutes ago. So definitely check that out. There's a lot of different factors that can contribute to rentability, but in terms of a property being too nice, think about it in two different ways. If you go to the nicest area in town, I'm in LA, so let's say Beverly Hills. If I go to Beverly Hills, how many people in that area do you think are renters? Not a lot. Those houses are going to be so expensive, the rents would be so high, who can afford that? At the point you can afford that high of a rent, you're probably in a position to just buy. So in terms of too nice of a rental property, what you really want to be looking at is, I don't know if it's exactly the ratio of, but you want to look at home buyers. How many people in that area would sooner just buy a house versus rent? And there is a line where, if you get into really cheap properties, though, a lot of those people can't afford to buy a house, so they have to rent. But when you're talking about the nicest areas and the nicest properties, depending on where you are and where the housing prices fall, people may just buy. And that's what happened on the property where I learned this lesson about having too nice of a rental property. The numbers all penciled out. But because it was in an area at the time that was incredibly affordable, everyone was just buying properties. There were no renters down there, which was crazy to me. It took me 8 months one time to find a tenant. Do you know how expensive that was? It was too nice of a property, and where the price was, people just bought the house. Versus, at the same time, and I talk about this in this rentability video, I bought this, it wasn't a shack, but it was on the lower end and lower quality street. It's actually a pretty sketchy street. That house, the rentability on that is so much higher because nobody who wants to live there can afford to buy a house. So they have to rent my house. Versus this really nice property I got, everyone just buys a house. So always consider the home buyers. And home buyers are not the only rentability factor, so make sure you do check out that video below because I dive into the different factors that can alter rentability, and I dive into why rentability is not only critical, I think it's the absolute most important #1 factor as to whether a rental property is successful or not as an investment. Did that drive home how important it is for you to go watch that video? So click that video below. Now, back to the question at hand. Can you buy too nice of a rental property? Absolutely. How do you know? First, run the numbers. See where you are on that. That's black and white. The numbers either pencil out or they don't. If the numbers work out and you need to check on the rentability, go watch that video because in that I explain exactly how to do that. So, the answer to the question is yes, you can buy too nice of a rental property. And information like this, knowing different dynamics of rental properties, it's what's going to make or break your investment in a particular property. So, make sure you've checked out the videos below, but you've also subscribed because I dive into things like this all the time. I want to try and help save you from the problems that I have experienced as a rental property owner. So make sure you're subscribed. I put a new video out every single week. Make sure you've hit that like button because you were supposed to do that earlier, whether you knew there was too nice of a property or not. And leave in the comments, have you had this experience where you bought a property that just didn't rent out like you thought it would? Share it for all to see. And I will see you on the next video.